good evening and welcome to the January 15th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference and is also being broadcast by FCTV on cable channel 9. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. We have a full complement of commissioners tonight. Thank you all for your dedication. And just as a reminder for commenting, I'll call on each of you in turn so we're not tripping over each other, and that all votes are done by roll call. So when I call your name, please state your name and your vote for the record, even if you've made the motion or the second. To our public attendees, anytime during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. If you'd like to participate in a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you will be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled, be succinct, and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. We don't have any RDAs tonight. We're going to skip that for the benefit of anyone waiting for a particular hearing tonight, so that you're not waiting unnecessarily. 117 Little Neck Bars Road is expected to be continued. So with that, we'll get right to it. First order of business, vote minutes, January 8th, 2025. Anyone?
I read and viewed the minutes and I move approval, Mr. Chairman. Patton.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the minutes as submitted. Questions or comments? All right, we're voting. Betsy.
Not going to vote. I wasn't there.
Bird eye.
Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews abstain. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks eye.
Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous with that quorum. You have accepted the minutes of January 8th. Next up is a request for a continuance under a notice of intent. First up, Nordo Nissi III, Jane Nissi, 117 Little Neck Bars Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reconstruct a garage, install a pool with patios, construct a deck and rent station, and install mitigation plantings. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until April 23rd.
Bird so move.
Driscoll, second.
Almost done.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until, you said, April 23rd.
Yes.
All right, questions or comments? We're voting on
Mr.
the
Chairman, what are we continuing?
Nisi.
117 Little Neck Bars Road, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah, and actually, this has
I
been
apologize.
continued 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be the 5th time. Is there something you want to tell us?
No, I will ask Tim what the holdup is next time I see him.
All righty. We're voting on the continuance. Betsy.
Gladfelter eye.
Courtney.
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks eye.
Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until April 23rd. Sorry about my voice. I'm getting over a cold. I'll try not to breathe on any of you though.
Thank you.
Next up is a request for a continuance under an enforcement order. Jane Sahagian, 21 Davis Neck Road, Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted vegetation removal, installation of a patio, and construction of a staircase within conservation jurisdiction. I'm going to say Jen.
I'll take this one. They would like to continue the matter until January 22nd.
Bird so move, and the reason?
I believe they're out of town, Courtney.
Okay.
Driscoll, second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this matter until January 22nd. We're voting on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Maury,
Carla Hawks, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
And I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this matter until January 22nd. Brings us to hearings under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. And as a reminder, public commenting is limited to 3 minutes. So I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. First up, Paul F. and Patricia A. Hogan, 112 Racing Beach Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reconstruct a portion of the existing seawall. Jen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Mike Borselli from Falmouth Engineering up to present his project. Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, Jen.
Mr.
Members of the-
Borselli, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Sorry about that, Mike. Yes, sir. I was trying to be quiet while I was coughing.
I assumed you were going to give me permission. I represent the applicant, Paul Hogan, who owns the property at 112 Racing Beach Avenue. This property may be familiar to you. There've been a couple of other projects in the past several years. Most recently, some invasive management, native planting that was done in and around the property. The property has frontage on Buzzards Bay. It faces almost due west. It has the house situated at the center of the lot. On the water, there's a coastal bank that includes a decades-old riprap. So there's a coastal bank, and then at the base of the bank is a narrow coastal beach, and then seaward of that is land under the ocean and land containing shellfish. To the south is land owned by Racing Beach Association. You may remember a few years ago, you issued an order of conditions that allowed for this culvert to be reconstructed so that it could facilitate draining of the wetland area upstream. We worked with mosquito control on that, and that work was done and is working well. I'm here tonight because although the majority of this riprap is in good shape, Mr. Hogan has been diligent in maintaining it. He's submitted a couple of previous RDAs to chink some of the voids by hand. That work had been done by a local contractor, Bill Armstrong, through the years. But there's one area on the very south end that I've shaded on this plan in gray that's a bit unraveled. And it really can't be, the voids can't really be chinked. It really needs to be rebuilt and reset. So we're proposing to do that. A portion of the revetment actually creeps onto the land of Racing Beach Association. So when we are repairing this and rebuilding it, we're going to steepen up the slope a little bit. It's relatively flat, so that the toe stones will, when rebuilt, will be entirely on the land of Mr. Hogan and not on the land of Racing Beach Association. Racing Beach Association has given us permission for a construction access over their land between the culvert pipe and the work. It's really the only viable access without causing significant disruption of vegetation on Mr. Hogan's land. We submitted a letter from the association that recognized that they reviewed the plan and that they were allowing access over their land to do this work. There's a standard detail on the plan that I will show over here that shows how the wall will be rebuilt in that area. I reviewed the staff report, and there are a couple of comments. There was a question about who would be conducting the work. I can't say for certain, but I can say that we've met on site with Dale Briggs twice to go over the methodology and the best way to attack this. And it's extremely likely it'll be Dale Briggs. Mr. Hogan, I believe, wants to hire Mr. Briggs, but he hasn't made it official yet. So I don't really recommend anyone else for this type of work because I don't know anyone that that I've had any experience with to do this kind of work. So I'm encouraging that Dale Briggs to do this work as well, but I can't, say for absolute certainty. Happy to have a pre-construction meeting that was mentioned. We had labeled this area as dune on a previous plan. I looked at it. I guess it is a dune. It's not. I wouldn't argue it's not a dune, so I'm happy to label this as a dune. But it's a very low profile. There's some Rosa rugosa and a little bit of American beach grass. We talked about on site with Dale Briggs about protecting this with matting. And your staff also suggests that matting should be used. We're certainly amenable to that. And then, of course, it would be restored if there's any damage. The matting, my experience is with the matting and low pressure track machines crossing over this, it might squash down some of the vegetation temporarily, but it's pretty resilient and it would spring back. If not, of course, it would be restored. So we're happy to and expect a condition like that. I think that's it on the main points of the staff report. And I think done with my presentation, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks, Mike. Jen.
You're on mute.
We can't hear you, Jen.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Mike, square footage of the bank as well.
Oh, yeah, right. We can note that.
Yeah, and then some of Teresa's plantings that she has up there might get disturbed, so those would need to be redone if those were disturbed.
I can note that on the plan. I can submit a revised plan that has all this information.
Yep, perfect. Thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Alyssa.
No comments, thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments, Betsy.
Nice and short, Mike. No questions.
Courtney.
Good job, good presentation. Thank you.
Thank
No
you.
questions.
All right, I copy that. Kevin.
I add to the compliments. No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Maury.
Nice straightforward project. Thank you.
Ron.
Has to be someone. Mike, is that construction access wide enough? Just look, it was pretty narrow.
I'm gonna measure it. Can't see in the dark here. The narrowest part is 16 feet right here, and the equipment that will gain access can easily get through a 16-foot wide access, and then it widens out.
Okay.
So we talked about this with Briggs as well.
Thank you. That's all.
All right, Steve,
I was just glad I got to walk around the entire property before I found the area that was being repaired. No comments.
Hopefully at sunset.
a full tour.
It was blowing too. Woo.
Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
Make a motion, to close the hearing, take it under advisement.
Bird second.
Gladfelter.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? All right, we're voting to close the hearing. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
That night.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Susan Moran, trustee, Charles E. Moran, Qualified Personal Residence Trust, 402 Wild Harbor Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to replace an existing concrete bulkhead with a vinyl sheet piling and to conduct invasive species management and restoration. And for the record, I will recuse from commenting or voting. Jen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted, well, Mike's still with us, and I've also promoted Elaine Johnson from Elaine, your company is Designs for Outdoor Living to present their project.
excellent. Mr. Boselli, welcome back. You're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering. I represent the applicant along with Elaine Johnson. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
The property in question is at 402 Wild Harbor Road. To gain access, there's a driveway, a relatively long driveway off Wild Harbor Road that leads up to a circular driveway at the house. This property has frontage on the inner harbor of Wild Harbor and facing in like a northeast direction. And then it also has additional frontage facing southeast on the main body of Wild Harbor. There have been other applications in the past on this property, not involving Falmouth Engineering, but recently the Morans retained us for this specific project before you tonight. I'm going to go to another plan that's got a little more detail. This is a blow up of the area where we're proposing to rebuild a section of a vertical concrete wall. This existing wall, which is licensed, is showing signs of failure on this section. There's subsidence behind it. At low tide, we noticed some holes at the bottom of the wall. So this section is in need of replacement. So the proposed project is to remove the section shaded in tan color, if you can see that, basically from the existing walkway and deck access from that point along to the angle point, and then from the angle point this way back inland into the property. You can see in the background, the existing return. It's labeled damaged concrete wall. And you can see some rocks that were placed here as an effort to try to mitigate the erosion. What's happening is the tides are pulling out some of the finer material through the holes in the bottom, causing subsidence, and the tides are also attacking around the end of the wall, and there's some erosion here. There was an effort back, I think, in 2014 to do coir fiber rolls here. There was an old plan that was shared by your staff that showed that, and it's just not working. So it's getting worse. So we were hoping that we can obtain permission to do the repair and extend the return a bit. No further seawood, no closer to any wetland resources. In this case, the wetland resources include, as you might expect, land containing shellfish, land under the ocean at Underwild Harbor. And then to the north is the tip of a salt marsh that goes further. It goes further. I'm going to the other plan now. The tip of the salt marsh is here, and it goes in a northerly direction. There's no salt marsh adjacent to the wall. This edge of salt marsh is approximately 7 to 8 feet from where we're proposing to drive the new sheet piling to replace the rocks and a part of the old wall that's here. We located all the trees in the general area. I'll go back to the blow-up plan now. We inventoried all the trees, and we identified where we think the best point for access is for the track-mounted excavator that would come through and install the sheet piling. It did be installed using a vibratory hammer. You've seen this before. I show a typical section. There's tiebacks, helical tiebacks, and I show how they're laid out under this. This is a grassy area. I show the edge of the clearing or tree line here, and I've shaded in a green area, an area where we need to come through for the construction access. And it's also been invaded with invasive plant material. And that's where Elaine Johnson comes in and has proposed a restoration area after we come in for the access that will include removing the invasives in this area and then replacement with the native plants. Making reference to the staff report, I should say that there are some issues and concerns raised by your staff that will require us to continue the hearing. We intend to request a continuance. In the staff report, comments I'm about to go through will make it clear why we want to ask for a continuance. The first question was, how will the salt marsh be protected during construction? So the salt marsh in question is the tip of the salt marsh here. That's about 7 or 8 feet away. We intend to put large stakes here with ribbons to flag it out. There'd be a pre-construction meeting. Ben Carson will be the contractor from Chip Schultz Marine. We met him on site a couple of times. There's no concern on our part that there's any potential for the salt marsh to be damaged because access comes through here. The machine will be staged here and will drive in the sheet piling in this location, but the salt marsh will certainly be pointed out, and it's already been reviewed with him. And there's no need to go any further than exactly where the wall is proposed, except for pulling out this one section of the existing wall that's actually more like 5 feet from that one point on the salt marsh. So that'll be pulled out, and the stones would be pulled out. So we're not overly concerned. We don't think there'll be any issue with impact to that salt marsh. There's a comment about a dog enclosure. I'll go back to the bigger plan so you can see that. There's a fenced-in dog enclosure over here that the family has used for their dogs. And yes, it was pointed out by staff that that area was not permitted. So there's an expectation that that area must be abandoned and restored. I went through this with the owner on site several months ago and pointed out that that was going to become an issue and that it would have to be dealt with. So that's the main reason we're requesting the continuance, so we can come back with a plan for how that's going to be restored. There's a couple questions about the planting and the invasives management that are probably best left to Elaine to comment on. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to her. And we're both here for questions.
All right,
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
yes,
Okay. Thank you for the invitation this evening. I'd like to address, first of all, the proposed planting for the area. As Mike explained, it was determined that the easiest place to access the property, construct the bulkhead, and to create a construction path for this large construction equipment that's needed for that work, that we would come in off the driveway, the lawn area, and an existing planting that's there adjacent and parallel to an existing white picket fence. And it was determined that we could remove 2, maybe 3 sections of that fence so that the width and the sizes of this large equipment will have access through that area down to the construction site. In order to do that, we're going to have to remove, I believe we specified 2 cedars, I will call them juniper virginianus, 2 existing pine trees, 1 choke cherry, which is down near the lawn edge of the property. And it was commented an undetermined tree. We weren't sure how to identify, and I did identify it. It's just a very large pussy willow tree, multi-stemmed, multi-trunked, sprawling, basically, in that area. And that counted for the existing 6 total trees to be removed. We did key on a couple of nice looking oaks that weren't totally enshrouded by bittersweet and honeysuckle, and we can limb them up so that the trucks and the equipment will have access under the canopy. I specified in my plan to replace the trees that we're removing with approximately seven native trees, a tupelo, an acer rubrum, 4 juniper virginianus, and an amanuncular. And then there will be a shrub understory. And if you show them the other plan, Mike, it's keyed there, so you get a sense of the placement of these shrubs. 3 types of native viburnum, Ilex glabra, inkberry, of course, Fothrogilla, gardeni, Myra could present that. Come on, Elaine. Just call it bayberry. The aronia and the clethra on the folia. As far as the invasives, and Mike will attest to this area is so impenetrable. I've never really seen such vigorous and healthy honeysuckle, and particularly bittersweet. As a matter of fact, there was one pine that was so enshrouded by it right off the corner of that existing shed. At first, we thought it was some kind of deciduous tree with interesting berries. It took us a while to figure out that the trunk of the pine actually was the support for the bittersweet, and of course, the tree was in total demise. In addition to the bittersweet, honeysuckle, some Rosa multiflora, obviously some poison ivy, some bullvine, Smilex rotundiflora. It was almost impenetrable to get back in there to identify much of anything else. I would make one comment with regards to the site visit by the staff. I did a little research and I do understand there was, I think, an RDA back in 2014 to plant in that eroded area that Mike made comment to, where those stones were. And bayberry was planted there, I think, in 2015. I wasn't involved with that at all, but I do understand that because of the erosion that occurred, maybe one or two of those plants actually survived. So I can understand where the commission would want us to try, once this revetment or this bulkhead is built and we can avoid some of that erosion, that area will become viable for another successive planting. I think that's all I have to say. Questions?
Mr. Chairman, before, I just wanted to point out, what we expect to do is request a continuance and then hopefully get staff out there and get into this a little more and come up with some solutions that we can bring back to you at a continued hearing to address the staff's concerns as well as any you might have tonight.
I still think it'd be prudent at this point to let everybody comment anyway,
Oh, yeah.
or
Absolutely.
ask questions, so that when you come back, you're
Mhm.
hopefully you only have to come back once.
Mhm.
All right, Jen. You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for answering all the staff's questions. We'd be happy to meet you out there, both of you, to discuss how we're going to restore the dog area and find room for additional bayberry that was required for the shed expansion. Mike, we just received at 6:02 this evening, we received Division of Marine Fisheries comments where they are putting a time or recommending a time of year restriction from May 1st to July 31st on the project to protect horseshoe crabs. So be prepared.
That's when we can't do work?
That's when you cannot do work.
Yeah, they would not want to do it then anyway.
Yeah. I kind of figured that much, but you'll see that as a condition as recommended by the Division of Marine Fisheries.
Mm-hmm.
And I think anything else we'll have to just say for when we're on site.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Alyssa.
Thank you. Yeah, not much to add other than to let the commission know that I did find that plan I referenced in the staff comment, and so I sent it over to Mike. It's basically mitigation associated with the 98 order and 2014 RDA that is just previously located in that eroded area and is no longer there. So we'll figure out if that's a good place to put it back or find another location on the property. But we can discuss it on site.
She's always finding these plans.
I had to hunt for that one. Went to the source.
All right, commissioner comments, Courtney.
Mike, what's two questions related. One is Do you know what the substrate is where where you're gonna drive these pilings? In other words, is it bony soil or is it pretty sandy? Is it peat? What is it?
We haven't done any borings, but my experience out here is it's a coarse sand with some small cobble, nothing significant beyond that. There's no, that's based on doing like test holes for septic systems. So I have no knowledge of any peat or anything like that. I do know that nearby the town, just on the other side of the harbor, did they rebuilt the whole sheet pile bulkhead in the same basic geology.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
That was a concern because this is all glacial outwash and it
Right.
varies everywhere. How deep are you going with the piles?
Well, at the tallest point, oops, excuse me, am I sharing?
No.
Okay. We're proposing to penetrate about 16 feet. We're going to have a total sheet length of 24. There'll be at the highest point 8 foot maximum exposed, and then twice as much driven into the ground or to refusal.
Okay, you've answered my questions. Thank you.
All right. Kevin,
No further, no questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
all right, now you're sharing.
I'll stop again.
All right, Maury.
All right, I'm not on mute. Mike, on page 2 of your sheet, you say, the structure is proposed to be constructed above mean high water. Therefore, no chapter 91's license is required. Isn't some of isn't it touching mean high water?
Yeah, so yes, that's a little confusing. So if you look, I'm going to share again. If you look on the plan, I'm going to mean high water is here. It hits the wall and it runs along a portion of the wall and then it pops out here. So the part the new part is above mean high water.
Okay.
The existing wall has benefit of a chapter 91 license. It's the craziest thing. There's been amazing accretion here against this wall to the point where this bulkhead, boats used to be able to tie alongside. For whatever happens in the harbor, I don't really know. I'm not a coastal geologist. Dredging, whatever that's happened, they've changed flow. There's cleats on this bulkhead to tie boats to, but it's a beach. So, so the whole thing did have a license. This part is the only part in the tidal zone right now. So that's what I was trying to say in that description.
Right. Well, that's why I was kind of confused only when you gave the your introduction that there's been, you tried to put the quarry log and you're getting erosion there. And I'm thinking, well, how could you, if it wasn't touching the water, how are you getting erosion?
Erosion, yeah.
That's where I was finding a little confusing.
Yeah, on the higher spring tides and moon tides, it's flowing up above mean high water on this end.
Okay. Their bubbler, by the way, is very, very aggressive on that dock. And it's really blowing sand and it's making a lot of turbidity there. They might want to, they might have a break in the line or something. I don't know. They might want to look at that. On the landscape plan, where the 10-inch oak is on Miss Johnson's plan, where it is not on her plan, it's on yours. But in your restoration project, I don't see any of the existing trees in that area you're restoring. I just see all the new things you're putting on, but I might be missing them.
We can make them clearer.
I can
on
make that a little more clear as we can cite it,
I can see some to the northwest. But I don't see any in your restoration area. I don't see the oaks. I don't see anything, just your new plant. So I think you should put your trees in there so we know what if there's an overlap or that both plants are consistent with each other.
I understand what you're saying, Lori. On the first plan, which is a basic overview and not just the planting plan of the new things, I tried to place as accurate as possible some of the larger trees that abut this area, and they were like grayed out. That
Yes, he goes, but I don't see any in the
in the planting itself.
new trees in the area of restoration, and there are existing trees in there. Am I correct?
There is one, basically just one nice oak that's going to
Yeah, I don't
remain
see it on
because, right.
the 10-inch.
I could just put that as a canopy tree, wherever it's located in that area. I didn't do it because you wouldn't be able to see the understory shrubs that are on that plan. That would be under this large canopy of the oak tree, but I can locate that for you.
Yeah, just so it's not, you're not planting too close to it as well. And I noticed that, is it all gonna be mulched in this area after you're done planting?
Typically, yes.
Typically, we don't.
I would prefer leaf mulch, which I know a lot of conservation groups on the Cape like very much. We used it recently in Harwich, but
We usually have some kind of meadow mix or grass mix or something.
oh,
like
you
that.
mean like the ground cover?
You can work with staff on whatever but we do not have landscape mulch in
Okay.
restoration areas.
That's no
and-
problem. Do you like leaf mulch? I've used that, as I said, in Harwich and down in Chatham, and they tend to be favorable, although it's not easy to find. I was able to get it delivered from Weston, if you want to believe it or not. Weston.
Every landscaper in the
West.
town has 1,000-pound million tons and cubic yards of leaf mulch. Just reach out to some of the local people. They have it chopped and.
Oh, okay.
Like you can discuss all that in the field. We're getting into
Oh,
the.
sure. Yep.
Was there bluestone I went to 3 sites today. Was there bluestone, Mike, along the top of that little cap, the wooden cap? Because I didn't see it on your plan, but I thought I saw it in the field. Like
there's a crushed stone. I'm gonna share one more time. There was like a crushed gravel edge along the back. That's my recollection.
All right. I forgot to take a picture, but I thought, like I said, I went to 3 different sites, and it could have been any one of them. But if it's just crushed stone, that's great. If it's bluestone, we'd have to have mitigation for that. And that was all. Thank you. And the cap is what, 24 inches wide, the new one?
I'm sharing still. It's this cap is just it's like 12 inches. It's just a cap off the, so you don't see the sheet piling, Z sheeting. It just caps it off with timber.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Maura, you good?
All good, thank you.
All right, Ron.
I'm good, thank you.
All right, Steve.
I'm good, thank you.
All right, Betsy. Betsy.
I'm also good.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
There's nothing in the public chat, but there is an attendee who has their hand raised. Mr. Muscali, I will promote you to a panelist so you can address the board. Mr. Muscali, if you would like me to promote you to a panelist, can you please put it in the chat function or tell us why you have your hands raised, please?
That's our select board liaison.
I know. I'm just trying, I don't know why his hand is raised. He's declining at this time to be promoted, Mr. Chairman, so I think we're okay.
All right,
And his hand is taken down. Yep, we're all set, Mr. Chairman.
all
Jennifer,
right.
Jennifer,
Yes,
can I ask you one question?
sure.
Will it be you or Alyssa we're meeting out at the Marines? I want to get if any of you
Both
are
of us or Alyssa,
Okay.
depending on when we're meeting. I will be out of the office towards the end of the month, early next month.
Okay, I just curious if you were taking a vacation. I want to, you know what it's like to coordinate more than one person.
No, I will be out of the office at the end of January and the first, I think, day of February.
I'll
So
set that
we'll
up.
have to, we'll coordinate something.
Okay, great.
I'll set it up.
Do we have a
All right.
date?
I'm requesting February 12th for a continuation date,
Oh, we got plenty of time then, Mike.
because I need to
Okay.
get submitted 1 week prior, and time
Yep.
flies when you're having fun.
At the
Yep.
request of the applicant, I'll make a motion to continue this to February 12th.
Driscoll second.
So,
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until February 12th. Last call, questions or comments? All right, we're voting on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Fellow Hawks Eye.
Ron,
The Driscoll eye.
and Steve.
And
All right, it is unanimous with this quorum. You have continued this until February 12th. Thank you, Mr. Borselli. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you.
Good night, Elaine.
Thank
Mike,
you.
I'll put you back into attendees.
Okay, I'm gonna leave. Good night.
Good night.
Next up, Edward and Ann Stern, 449 Sipawicet Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to upgrade the existing sewage disposal system and for after-the-fact permission to install a shed and mitigation plantings. Jen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am promoting Mark Dibb of Cape and Islands Engineering to present his project. Evening,
Mr.
Mark.
Dave, you're up, sir.
Good evening. For the record, Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant at 449 Sipawicet Road. With your permission, I'll share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the project tonight is to repair an existing septic system for a 3-bedroom house, as well as permit a shed that appears to be unpermitted on the property. The property is situated on the southwest side of Sipawicet Road. It's along Flax Pond. We've identified the resource areas. We have an inland bank and associated Falmouth Buffer Zone A, this green line, and Falmouth Buffer Zone B. So again, we're proposing to replace an existing cesspool septic system with a new system that will use the same outlet, but will just pipe over to a septic tank that's proposed inside the existing paved driveway over to a leach field that's essentially situated as far away as possible from the resource area, just outside the Falmouth B buffer zone, and within constraints of topography and things like that. We've situated as far away as we can. As well as this existing shed was deemed to be unpermitted. So we're proposing to keep the shed, however, mitigate for it. You'll see a mitigation table. We're providing 3-to-1 mitigation for that shed, which has been proposed in this area of the site. I believe Chuck Rowland from our office responded to any staff comments there were. And that's the main focus of the project. Again, no changes to the house, just a septic upgrade, as well as providing mitigation in order to keep the shed. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mark. Jen,
I think Mark answered all our questions. We were just looking for the mitigation for the shed. Thank you, Mark.
Melissa, all
No comments. Thank you.
right. Commissioner comments. I'll start with me because I can. Pretty simple project. Thanks, Mark. Kevin,
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Maury,
No comments, thank you.
Ron,
Yeah, good job fitting that mitigation area into that site. That was very difficult. I find it hard to believe that there's 372 square feet in that little area, but
crazy.
say so. That's all. Thank you.
Steve,
No comments, thank you.
Betsy,
No comments, thanks.
all right. Courtney,
No comments. Good project.
Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
And I'll make a
Yeah.
motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Risk
Second.
perspective.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call. Questions or comments? We're voting to close the hearing. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Moore,
Hello, Hawkseye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
And
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you, Mark. I'll put you back into attendees.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, our continued request for hearing under notice of intent. First one been previously continued. Brings us to Chris Smith, Clancy Construction, 318 Sipawicet Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling, construct a new single-family dwelling with an attached garage, deck, and patio, and upgrade the existing sewage disposal system. Jen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am promoting Justin Lamore, and Katrina, I am going to probably mispronounce your last name. Korolov.
Katerina Krolov, no worries.
Thank you, Katerina. From Strong Tree Engineering to present their project. Welcome.
Thank you. If you don't mind, also John McGrath. He is joining us with Strong Tree as well.
I do not see a John McGrath in our attendees.
All right, I'll text him, but we would like him to speak if needed. So hopefully he does join. Thank you.
Hi, Jen. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Justin. How are you?
Justin Lamoureux, Strong Tree Engineering. How's it going? Representing
Excellent. And Mr.
Clancy
McGrath
Construction.
sorry, Justin, Mr. McGrath just joined us, so I'm going to promote him up.
Great. With your permission, can I share my screen?
sir.
Okay, let's see here. Okay. So we have a fairly straightforward raise and replace of the existing dwelling on this project. We have existing additions here on the left, Sipawicet Road to the west. We have our proposed conditions here on the right. The lot is 1.3 acres. The wetland here is shown in green to the north of the property. Potentially an old cranberry bog. And we had a coastal bank, which is shown here in orange. In proposed, we've pushed the house as far south away from the wetland as possible while maintaining this access, vehicle access to the garage. This is the entrance to the garage. The driveway, as you can see, if you look at both ends, is in the exact same footprint in existing and proposed. We're actually removing a portion of the driveway, which I'm circling right here. That's gravel. The applicant is proposing to pave the driveway, which is the only increase in impervious for all the buffers. We're actually reducing the impervious for all of the buffers on site with the retreat of the house by 18 feet and removal of this patio area. So impervious area for all buffers goes down with the exception of the zone B, the 50 to 100 coastal bank. We also proposing a new septic system. The sanitary absorption field is shown here. New tank, new D-box. The field itself is completely out of any buffer zones, and it's actually has been reviewed by the Board of Health and it has been approved. Both existing and proposed are 3-bedroom dwellings, so there's no increase in loads for septic. We are proposing silk sock around the limit of work for erosion controls during construction. And so just to recap, for mitigation, we're proposing an 18-foot retreat away from the wetland for the house. Stormwater improvements, we have 2 roof dry wells for the new house, which the existing has nothing. And we're also proposing a dry well for the driveway, the driveway that's located in the buffer zone to collect and infiltrate the groundwater. We are also removing an old cesspool, which exists. It's right near the wetland. It's amazing they put a cesspool right near the wetland. We are also proposing native plantings. There was hopefully a landscape plan as part of your package.
Yes.
Mostly a residential landscape plan right now. I think there's 3 deciduous trees and then some evergreens. And then, like I mentioned, reduction in impervious over the site for all the buffers except for the zone B. The owner of the property did want me to mention he was just appointed chief steward by the 300 Committee Land Trust in Falmouth for Flume Pond Conservation Area, which is directly across the street. And he will be doing maintenance on the pathways for the 300 Committee, and it's a volunteer position. So with that, I'd like to just send it to John McGrath. John, if he just wants to touch base on the wetlands and coastal bank, if that's possible. I will stop sharing.
Thank you. Where's John? You're up. Mr. McGrath?
Hello. We got you.
Turn your video on, please.
Mr. McGrath, if you have a video, could you please turn it on and address the board?
Yeah, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me, okay. I'm sorry, might be having a little problem with my video. I'm John McGrath. I work with here we go.
There you
Right.
go.
Yep, just click the link. Do you have me on now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a senior wetland scientist. I'm a PWS with Strong Tree Engineering. Back last July, I went out to delineate the wetland, which is okay, I'm looking for that.
What are we doing?
Can you hear me now?
I
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay, so I'm the wetland scientist of record.
Yes.
John, you keep stopping. What's the problem here?
So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we have been able to hear
Okay.
you, Mr. McGrath.
All right, I apologize.
It's
So
okay.
I was out last summer to delineate the bordering vegetated wetland. It's a former cranberry bog area. It's approximately 2 acres of land that falls over on the east side of the road. It's located.
Keep going.
And it's located on the. It's located north of the existing dwelling.
We can't see it.
I really don't know. I'm trying to, this is my first time on a Zoom call and
It's okay, sir. What are you trying to share? Are you trying to share a screen or are you just trying to describe it to us?
Can
I
we
don't know
just
if he
open
can
it
hear
to
us.
question? Want to just open it to questions?
I wonder if the audio is delayed for him.
All right, we need to
Mr.
move
Chairman,
forward.
why don't you just go on to questions for right now?
All right. Then I'll turn it over to you, Jen.
Okay, thank you. Justin, could you provide the mitigation calculations for us? So our mitigation is based on like increases and decreases in impervious surfaces. So could you provide those calculations for us?
let me I can talk about the coastal bank issue that was brought up in the staff report.
Mr. McGrath, we typically in these meetings, we don't interrupt other people talking. If you don't mind, you have your chance. I don't know what's going on if you can't hear us or if something's going on. We'll come back with questions to you. So please hang out a second. Justin, can you answer
Yep.
that question about the mitigation?
Yep, definitely. Yeah, Jen, we did, all the calcs were done in AutoCAD. We're happy to provide a PDF of those to you if that will help, colored PDF. Basically, it's a reduction in the 50-foot wetland, the 100-foot wetland buffer, and then the AB 50 coastal, which came out to be about 1682, so 1,682. The zone B, we're increasing the impervious by 1653, so it's a net reduction over the site in all the buffers. But I'm happy to provide a PDF plan of that if
That
that
would be
help.
great. Color coded plan and the calculations, just so we can confirm that, Justin, that would be great.
Yep,
We'd
of course.
appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. And I think, Mr. Chairman, that's what we kind of need to confirm that. So we can, confirm that for the board and offer any recommendation. So we will need that. So we will need a continuance to get those calculations. So that's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Melissa.
Yes, just a follow-up note. There were, I think, 1 or 2 trees between the top of the bank and the start of the BVW. If you wouldn't mind just adding those to the plan so we have a accurate view of the trees on site. There were also a couple, and I can submit a photo if it's easier on site, sort of in that corner of the patio that just didn't appear to be shown on the plan. And one tree was at a pretty significant lean, so it's probably worth taking him down to if you're going to have your patio there. So I could send a picture if it's helpful. I was just looking at all the trees and noticed they weren't shown on the plan.
Yep, that'd be great if you could send a picture and we'll go out and shoot it, survey it. So no problem.
I'll make a note. Thank you.
Hi, Alyssa, just jumping in. If we could come up with the number of trees, I believe we might be at 9 now. So we would like to add those to the landscaping plan. So we'll try to connect with you to confirm a proper number. So thank you for that.
Perfect. Yeah. And just as I noted to the commission, we did have an AR filed in the fall for some immediate hazard trees sort of around the home during this time. Obviously, the lot is fairly well treed, but I just wanted to make a note in case the commission would like any restoration.
Great,
you.
thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments, Maury.
I did not get the landscape plan in my packet, the mitigation stuff, but that's fine now that it's gonna be continued. I'll look at it. And I have no other questions. Thank you.
All right. Ron,
Yeah, I had some questions about the trees, but I guess Alyssa's covered it. There was some trees taken down before we went out there last spring. I don't see them on the plan, but I'm sure they'll be taken care of. That's all. Thank you.
all right. Steve?
I don't have anything to add, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Betsy?
Nothing to add, thanks.
Okay. Courtney? You're on mute, Courtney.
I didn't go, so.
No questions. Sorry for the hitting the wrong button.
No worries, Court.
Kevin?
Well, based on the discussion, first off, I'd like to confirm we're talking about 318 Sipawicet.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. Fine. I'm fine with a continuance.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Justin, is there anyone else on your team have anything to add at this point?
No, I think we're good. If I could just address the trees that were taken down were surveyed. I physically surveyed them myself. They're just shown as a different block. It's like a stump block, but as we go through the landscape plan, we'll just make sure everything's shown and we can make it a little more visible.
Fine.
That would be appreciated.
Thank
Yep,
you.
thank you.
All
Well,
right.
we have
What
it-
are we looking?
We're looking for a date.
Justin, how much time would you think you need to get us like that AutoCAD file and the color coded to just kind of make it clear for us?
Yep, it's all completed, so we'll just have to pretty it up a little bit, and then we'll just work on the landscape plan. So I would say a
Okay.
week.
Okay, so we're not meeting on the 29th, so a continuance to February 5th. Would that work for you?
I think that sounds fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
At
you.
the request of the applicant, I'll make a motion to continue this to February 5th.
Bird second.
Wait, February what?
February
Second.
5th,
5th.
5.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until February 5th. Last call, questions, comments? All right, we're voting on the continuance. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
All Hawks eye.
Ron?
Driscoll, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until February 5th. Thank you all.
Thank
you very much. Have a good night.
Give me a second, Mr. Chairman, to get everybody back in order. Okay, Mr. McGrath.
What a night.
Okay. He's going. Okay.
Maybe give them a call and explain how the protocol works for Zoom
Yes.
meetings.
I will.
Make things a lot easier. Next
Yep.
up, and Kim Capobianco, 316 Edgewater Drive East, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise RAZE an existing single-family dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling with a garage slab, upgrade the existing sewage disposal system, and reconfigure the driveway. garage slab with no garage, or? All right. Jen,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've promoted Mark Dibb from Cape and Islands Engineering to present his project. Welcome back, Mark.
Mr. Dibb, you're up, sir.
Hello again, and for the record, Mark Dibb, Cape and Islands Engineering. With your permission, I'm going to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
So this is a continued hearing. We had presented this project, a raise and replace project at 316 Edgewater East. I believe we've responded to staff comments and commissioners' concerns. Those included, we submitted updated architectural plans that did not include breakaway panels on the lower level, as well as coordinated a couple of the sets of stairs between the site plan and the architectural plan. We did add the Falmouth Coastal Bank to the property, to the plan, which adjusted slightly the A zone and B zone, as well as the mitigation table no longer took credit for an existing shed that was not permitted. It was being proposed to be removed anyways, but we were taking some credit for the existing structure in the partially in the A and B zone. So that has been adjusted. Mitigation calcs have been provided. It's still a net reduction in both the A and B zones, as well as we've added a couple trees for replacement of a couple trees in the B zone. I believe that is where we're at this point. Happy to answer any more questions that anybody might have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Jen,
Mark, the only question I had is that tree you have by the septic. Is that going to be okay there if it's right on top of the septic like that? Is there any other place on the property we could put it? I mean, you have it kind of shoved between the house, the septic, and the road.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be proposed to kind of be like a centerpiece and coming in that entrance. There, let me share my screen one more time. Just
It doesn't look like we have any vegetation between the house and the bulkhead or some sort of, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are two, there's an existing pretty large holly in the back and an existing 6-inch deciduous tree. You know, the applicant has the back of this lot has been this way forever, probably almost since the 70s, I believe, when this is built. They're just trying not to add a tree in the back, but you know, if I do think, you know, there should be enough room to get that tree in somewhere in this front, but would be happy to work with staff if we have to. And then they're trying to, there's a number of houses, they're actually trying to be cognizant of the view from neighbors down the street. There's a corridor right through here that a number of houses have some views. So they're also trying to avoid this area. But you know, we'd be happy to talk about the location of this.
You know, I would just be concerned that the tree eventually would damage the septic system. The tree roots might damage the septic system. That's what I was kind of, you know, not only for the health of the tree, but also for the health of the septic.
We'll provide 2 trees if that's okay. And maybe, you know, one of them can be determined during construction, if that's fine.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
all right.
Stop sharing.
Alyssa,
No comments. Thank you.
all right. Commissioner comments. Ron,
Oh, Mark, thank you. Looks like you accomplished it. I'm all set. Thanks.
all right. Steve, Steve, you're on mute.
Can't hear you, Mark, Steve.
I'm not sure that's not better, but I have no additional comments. Thank you for responding to the staff's request.
Betsy,
Thanks, Mark. It's great. No questions.
all right. Courtney,
My only issue is the tree near the septic exits me a heartthrob. It'll make the tree very happy because it'll grow very nicely. With its roots going right into the septic with all that nice nourishment, but that's going to shorten the life of the septic system, which doesn't sound very practical in my mind. I would not put the tree there. Find another home for it. All I'm trying to do is save the owner from himself and his additional expense when he has to redo the septic system down the road a lot sooner than he would normally. No other questions.
Kevin,
It's hard to follow up on that. No additional questions, Mr. Chairman, but you know, maybe the guy would rather spend the money.
right? Maury,
You could always put a 40 mil barrier, root barrier between the leach field and the tree, and that would help. The only question I had, Mark, is that I just went to the coastal water and the Board of Health meeting on Monday regarding the D-night systems, and a lot of engineers are starting to prepare and make it so another tank can go in if necessary, or some sort of nitrogen treatment. So you might want to just let your client know that it's definitely coming down the pike. Thank you.
all right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat function.
All right, what are you thinking?
I make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second, Gladfelter.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? All right, we're voting to close the hearing. Betsy. Betsy, you're on mute.
I'm on mute because you don't like me to be not on mute. So aye.
Courtney.
Third eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Maury.
Carlo Hawks, aye.
Ron.
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Deb.
Thank you all.
All right. Next up, Cindy Coates, trustee, 187 Penzance Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to install restoration and mitigation plantings in accordance with Mass DEP number 25-4608. Renovate an existing boathouse, including roof alterations, relocate mitigation plantings, remove several dead and diseased trees, and maintain an existing path. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dibb is still with us to present this project.
Good evening again, Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering. On behalf of the applicant for 187 Penzance. We had previously presented this project. With your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so since we initially presented, I believe we've actually had a couple site visits with staff. We've worked through some of the comments. I'll just briefly go through those and go to any additional questions the commissioners might have. This is the property at 187 Penzance Point. It's the end property. I'm gonna just showing the entire area. I'll just describe the work out on the southern point first, and then go to this westerly point description real quick. So I'm just going to move around a second here. So on the southerly point, we're providing mitigation for the few minor improvements, this patio, a shed that's actually being relocated out from the A zone. So that's what this darker green is. The lighter green is areas of a previously approved Wilkinson ecological design project that we are going to see through to completion, these two areas in green on the property. This is I believe we've kind of covered the boathouse. So we've provided the architectural plans. It's a previously existing licensed structure that we've consulted with Waterways and can be modified per the architectural plans without needing to modify the license other than a minor modification. As we move over towards the west, there's one additional area of mitigation. And so on the westerly point, I'm going to call this the westerly point, there's a number of pine trees that are either dead or partially infested by the beetle infestation. So we're trying to, by way of this project, eradicate that infestation, which kind of gone back and forth, but we definitely agree with staff and us agree to do our best attempt to eradicate that infestation from the pine trees by removing the pine trees in this area. We are proposing 8, a combination of white oak, red oak, eastern red cedar, and tupelo trees for that area, along with some existing oak trees that are doing very well, as well as some understory restoration with some plant species that we agreed on out at site for that area. And then the last remaining part of the project, we are going to continue the monitoring these shrubs that were installed per the Wilkinson plan in this area, as well as finish or even start some invasives management and follow through again with what is proposed on the Wilkinson plan for this area, and even propose 3 more trees that the owner has wanted to include into the proposal. So I do believe after a couple site visits and a number of meetings with staff that we've tried our best to answer questions and concerns from the staff. With that, I'm going to stop sharing and answer any other questions.
Thanks, Mark. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mark, to clarify, did you just say 3? I thought it was 6 on that last area you were talking about. Did I just mishear you? I thought it was 6 trees.
It's 6. If I
Okay.
said 3, I mean 6.
Okay. Okay. I don't think I have anything else to add, Mr. Chairman. We've visited the site multiple times, and this is what we have discussed on site, and this plan accurately reflects the discussions we had on site with Cape and Islands Engineering and the homeowner.
Excellent.
It also
All right.
ties up like a lot of old mitigation that was required, right, Mark? And for, you know, walls that were built decades ago, work that was done on the house. So, yeah, nothing to add.
All right. Alyssa?
No comments at this time. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments. Steve? You're on mute, sir.
Same result. I don't have any comments. Thank you.
All right. Betsy?
So I'm just wondering, given that it's taken, this is a lot of past mitigation that's being dealt with, and there's a lot of sort of cleanup from previous plans if we require the mitigation be put in before a building permit. Just throwing that out there. So that we make sure the mitigation gets put in. That's all. That's all, Mike. And you don't have to comment, Mark.
All right. Courtney,
Yes, I think that's not a bad idea. The other thing is, I was out there with Maury this afternoon. And we couldn't find the trees that were supposedly supposed to be taped off, that were gonna be removed. That's just an observation, unless you found the tape later on, Maury. The other thing, Mark, and this has not really too much to do with the hearing, but I'm trying to be a good Samaritan. Would you put your map back up on the screen? If you could share
Yes.
that, please. Okay, now zoom in on the boathouse. If you can, go in more.
please.
Go in more, please. Okay, now, maybe one more magnification. Okay, now, there's an arrow that says limit of erosion control.
Okay, yeah,
At the top of that arrow is an $800 iPhone laying on the ground. So if somebody's missing an iPhone from their trips out there, they might want to go look there. I was hesitant to move it because if somebody was missing it, they wouldn't find it if I moved it thinking I was doing the right thing. Other than that, I have no questions. Thank you.
Did you say it's still there or you have it? keeping it?
It was there when I left at about, Maury and I left about the same time, which is about 4:30, quarter of 5 this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
And it's just laying on the ground, face down, camera up.
Just look for the arrow. It's right there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
But I mean,
Well,
obviously it could have been from anybody that isn't
Yeah.
necessarily watching this.
Courtney gets an attaboy. All right. Mark,
Other
thank
than
you
that,
for-
I have no questions. And thus endeth my role as Good Samaritan. I'll return to being the grump.
please. All right, Mark, thank you and your team for addressing all these issues. Thank the homeowner for all the efforts. We really do need to see the mitigation go in this time, though. It's been a while. Kevin.
No further comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Maury.
I agree with Betsy on the plantings before the building permit.
Ron.
Yeah, it was a good job, Mark, going through all these meetings. One question I had was going back to Cricket Lane and Woods Hole, was about disposing of the bamboo. Where did you dispose of the contaminated pine trees with that beetle?
I don't know. Hadn't been asked that question or thought about that question, but we'll have the arborist in charge dispose of it properly, I guess is my
Yeah,
best
we were
answer.
just wondering where it properly is disposed of. It just,
Yeah.
you don't want to throw it somewhere else and start the contamination.
All right.
Makes it.
Good point.
That's it. Thank you.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat function.
I'll make a motion and close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Heard second.
And also, I'm wondering if Jen could find out for us what does happen with this kind of stuff.
I will.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing.
I think Mark has a
Great.
question.
Yeah, thank you.
Could
Mark?
I ask one question? Is given the time of year, is there anything? It's a time of year that renovations to the boathouse could take place versus plantings cannot take place for a couple months. Wondering if there's anything that can be potentially, traded for or something to ensure that the plantings go in, but that possibly some renovation work could happen to the boathouse. Just only because of the season. Just be happy to entertain any kind of agreement that might be able to be made for that.
We can discuss it
Right.
in deliberation, Mark,
Okay.
but don't get your hopes up.
Okay, good enough.
Valid point. Well taken.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, we're voting to close the hearing. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carol Hawks, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
And I.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing.
Hallelujah.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Mark. Good
Night,
night.
Mark.
All right, next up, a request to amend an existing order of conditions. First up, Alex Khan, Falmouth Heights Real Estate LLC, 263 and 269 Grand Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP number 25-4941 to reduce the size of the walkway enclosure and to construct a shed. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Tom Bunker from BSS Design is here to present his amended request.
Yep, here I am.
Excellent.
For the record, my name is Tom Bunker with BSS Design, as Jen said, and I'll get right to it if I can share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So start with the Google Street View, just to give you an idea. If you're familiar, I represent Alex Khan. He's the owner of Shipwrecked, among other properties in Falmouth. That's the this restaurant by the ball field in the Heights. And you got your view of Vineyard Sound over there. It's on the Central Park side. So we had previously last year had an NOI to add some enclosure. I can get to that. Add some enclosures along this. Whoops. Here. Along the ramp right here. To give some patrons some cover from the weather and protection from foul balls in the ball field. And so that plan is right here where we have the building and this walkway was proposed in this location. I had a detail, basically a 30 feet long covered area over the ramp by the door. And there's also some enclosure in this doorway. Used to be a doorway, hasn't been used as a doorway for a while. This area right here is being enclosed. So that was the plan which was approved. I can get to the proposed addition here. So now that cover is being reduced substantially to this little thing. So it's 59 square feet, where before it was 162 square feet. And in place of the cover that's being removed, I want to add this shed, which will have a little Cape Cod motif going on here. We got the lighthouse. It is a takeout shed, so they have a kitchen in the restaurant, of course, and this will be where they do takeout meals and snacks. This side is the side facing the ball field. So, and that's going, I can show you back on this, it's going basically in the back here where there's a fence and a dumpster and stuff at the moment now. So that is the proposal. We're just making that smaller there, adding the shed. And I will take that down and hope that was short and sweet enough. We'll take questions. By the way, the coverage is not increasing. This is work in a velocity flood zone limited to 200 square feet. And it was under 200 the prior one, and is still under a 200 square foot addition in the velocity flood zone.
All right. Jen,
Thank you, Tom. No questions or comments, Mr. Chairman.
all right. Alyssa,
None at this time. Thank you.
all right. Tom, I have a couple questions. You're gonna get rid of the dumpster. Where's it going? It's not our purview, but
I'd have to look in the plan. I think there's room to push it over. That's not something I had studied.
you know we ask odd questions.
It's this is parking. It's going. Oh, that's the old. No, that's.
You're not sharing, so.
I'm not sharing, right?
All right.
It's going. It can just slide back. Slide away from Central Park Ave. There is room to just move it over.
And the shed is not attached to the building?
It's not attached. It's anchored. It has footings, sonotube or Bigfoot footings, but it's not attached to the building. There'll be
Board of
doors.
Health approval?
His people are dealing with that. I have not done nothing but Board of Health.
Okay. All right. Commissioner comments and questions. Betsy?
No questions. Could have been shorter, could have been sweeter.
Darn.
Yeah, Jamie hadn't said anything. Courtney?
Yeah.
No questions.
All right. Kevin?
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Maury?
Just make note, there's only 5 square feet left for their.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ron?
No questions, thank you.
Steve? Steve, you're on mute.
No questions, thank you.
All right, Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
Make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Bird second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? We're voting to close the hearing. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney?
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Hello, Hawk's eye.
Ron?
Driscoll, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you and good night.
Good night, Tom.
Night,
Night, Tom.
Night.
All right. Next up, John F. and Judith B. Ramondi, 25 Beckles Road, Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP number 25-4896 to shift the proposed driveway. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I promoted Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, to present his amended request. Thank you.
Excellent. Mr. Borselli, you're up, sir.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, representing the applicant. With permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Yes, sir.
You've previously reviewed this project under and issued an order of conditions to do house renovations. And the driveway subsequent to that was proposed for overflow parking because there's a very limited parking on the property. So you previously reviewed a plan for alongside Beckles Road parking. And it came with a condition that we submit a revised plan to shift the driveway further south in an effort to save or prevent from having to be cut to cedar trees. So the original plan that you reviewed and approved with that condition is this plan. So in trying to figure out the best way to do this and shift the driveway south, we discovered that we can really only shift it a little bit south because across the street is a driveway that goes up a hill. It's at an angle and cars back out of this very often. And if we put a car right here, it was a recipe for disaster. So we shifted this a little bit south and narrowed it up, and made it so a car that's parked there wouldn't be in conflict with a car that might back out of this driveway and not pay attention. And the net result of that is one cedar can be saved and one cannot. So in an effort to mitigate for that tree that's to be removed, in my opinion, the two cedars are too close together anyway, but they're both living and, you know, appear to be reasonably healthy. This one would have to go. It's in an outer buffer zone B to the top of a coastal bank. But there's an opportunity on the property over here to plant some cedar trees if we take out some very overgrown yews. There's 4 yews in here that were probably planted when they were like nursery stock 20 years ago, and they've turned into massive unruly yews that aren't native, and they were probably originally proposed for screening. So we're hoping to offset removing that cedar tree, we could take out the yews, and there's a small amount of invasive starting to grow underneath. We would hope that we could just take the invasives out under the yews and then plant in its place 4 cedars that would be scattered in a row about 8 feet on center, and they would substitute for the yews, and they'd be native cedar trees, mitigating taking 1 out and putting 4 in its place. There was some concern when we met on site with Jen about this remaining cedar and if this driveway would have any impact on that cedar. I'm not an expert. I don't believe so. And the people I've spoken to don't think it'll be impacted. But if it's a concern, there could be some condition of monitoring it for a few years to see if it starts to decline. And if so, we feel like we mitigated by adding 4 here just in case that one were to be in decline. But we really can't shift this driveway any further south, and we've done everything we can to keep it as far away from the cedar tree as possible. I think that sums it up. I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks, Mike. Jen.
Like the yews have already been removed?
I saw that note on the staff report. I went there today that they're not removed. They're still there. I was there at like 1 o'clock today. I went down there specifically after I got the staff report.
Well, Alyssa went and did the reports. Maybe she can talk about that. And you're gonna remove the invasives, you said?
There is some invasives underneath the yews. There's not a lot of invasives, but whatever's, when the yews are taken out, there's a little bit of bittersweet under there. I think just in the
How
area
about
where
all the vines?
there's some vines and a lot of vines over here. We didn't really get into like a really comprehensive invasives management on this bank. It was just going to be in the area where we're taking out the yews.
Yeah, you know, I'm struggling with this one, Mike. I mean, we're taking out what's left of any trees on really cedars on that site. The bank is still being cut, and I have no hope that the bank will stop being cut. And now we're taking trees and we're just shoving them into a hole underneath all these invasives if the board has been there. You understand, we're just shoving it, using it as screening. It's really not going to do anything. I don't have high hopes for it. But those are the only comments I have, Mr. Chairman. So where did that hole come from, Mike? Because it wasn't there when we were out there.
I guess I don't know what you mean by hole, because I went out there today, and it's the same conditions that I recall from when we met on site the last time we were there.
Okay,
Maybe we
all
should
right, that's all I
vote
have,
in-
Mr. Chairman.
Well,
Ooh.
all
I
right.
mean, it's what it is.
I'm happy to continue it and go look at it again if you want. I'm
No,
not,
I mean,
I'm
Mike,
not,
it is what it is. The proposal is to remove the U's and put the cedars in, like, put the cedars, you know, against that property boundary right there. Under the invasives, near the invasives on the bank. I mean, we discussed this in the field. I just don't have high hopes for them, that's all. But that's okay. That's the proposal. That's the proposal. That's what your client wants, and
if
it
you
is what
would
it
like,
is.
if you think it's appropriate for a monitoring condition, I mean, so be
Yeah,
it.
we'll probably put one in, Mike, to
Mhm.
save that last cedar.
Okay. Or if you want to monitor make sure that these cedars
Mm-hmm.
are not invaded.
Yeah, I know. It's just it's a tough place to put them. I understand what you're up against, so that's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Alyssa.
Thank you. Yeah, just to clarify, sorry about that, Mike. I started my photos from the path. I was kind of looking up because I knew that was where the invasives were. So if you look on the photo that I attached, I just saw this very large void area, and I don't remember that have being there on
Yeah,
the property. I just remember it was so tight out there trying to find space for plants that I feel like I would have remembered this area. So I just felt like they were already removed, but I also didn't have the best reference picture, so I might have just forgotten which ones were the U's. Are they the really large ones on the right side of the picture? That like darker plant going up?
yes, I'm happy to
Okay.
meet you on the site and show you.
Okay. I just remember going out there with you and Jen, and I think it was the homeowner, and
Mhm.
just similar concerns. It's just so close to all those invasives, and it's really just a swap for coverage is really not a gain here, like to compensate for the tree. But that's up to the board. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments. Courtney.
No comment.
All right. Kevin.
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Maury.
Oh, I'm not a big fan of use, so I'm not, having angst over removing the use, but without the invasives properly managed, I just have the same concern Jen and Alyssa do, that, you just put 5 cedar trees in there and in 3 or 4 years they're swallowed up by the invasive. So, I don't know. And
Yeah.
I really don't have any problem with the cedar that's left. I work on jobs where cedars are literally 2 or 3 feet off of driveways, and they seem to thrive. It's more when chainsaws get near them that they don't do so well.
On the invasive management point, just if you want to meet, I'm happy to continue this hearing and maybe get a landscape contractor qualified to do invasive management to go out and look and maybe do a protocol for the invasive management in that area too. I'm just not qualified to do it. I was just trying to find a way to get this driveway and show good faith for cutting the 1 cedar tree in the B zone.
Maury, you good?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
Ron.
I'm all set, thanks.
Okay. Steve.
I thought it was a weak reason for all this effort, but if we're okay with the cedar placement, I'm okay. As long as we're not hurting the environment anymore, I'm okay, but it was just not much of a reason to do all this.
All right. Betsy.
So I would just suggest saying that those cedar trees have to stay. And if they're swallowed by invasives, then the whole area has to be cleaned and planted with cedar trees again.
Yeah. All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
There's nothing in the public chat. I just want to clarify what Betsy said. Betsy said, you mean the cedars that Mike's proposing stay, not the one in the front that he needs to remove for the driveway, correct?
Correct. The
Okay.
one that stays in the front, we should watch it, but I agree with Maury. I mean, you go up and down my street and there are cedar trees right next to the street.
Perfect.
But I think all the cedar trees should be monitored. And especially the ones that are replacing the yews, if they get overgrown with invasives, then that has to be cleared and the cedar trees, new cedar trees have to go in.
Okay. Mike, I think instead of continuing it and bringing in somebody, we'll just, maybe the client can hire somebody to monitor it. And if they need to remove the invasives to protect the trees, we can work with you to permit that, to keep them free of invasives. I don't think we need to continue this and
Okay.
you do that whole thing.
I know
Because
that
if you're going to be
Paul-
chasing invasives, you're going to be chasing them all down that entire bank, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah, it becomes a bit, a much
it
different
becomes a
project.
really, really big job.
I know
Right.
that Reposa Landscape manages the property. I'm sure that he would want to protect his investment and keep those invasives out of his new cedar trees. I know that. I can pass that along, or, anything to sort of demonstrate that he does his best not to have the invasives go back into the new cedar trees.
Okay, and if you could also pass along that we would really appreciate if they stop cutting that coastal bank, that would be awesome. Great.
I
Thank
will
you.
absolutely do that.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, because doing those things makes my job a lot more difficult.
At least it wasn't clear cut to the ground, which happened what, 15 years ago?
Mhm.
All right, what are we thinking?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Third, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Last call, questions or comments? We're voting to close the hearing. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Third, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carl Hawks, aye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
And I,
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good night.
Thank you. You all too. Thanks.
Night, Mike.
Good night.
All right, next up, requests for certificate of compliance. Elizabeth D. Hlavka, the Dogwood Realty Trust, 69 Barnack Road, Falmouth, Mass. Request for certificate of compliance for Mass DEP number 25-4621. Jen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there is a representative or a trustee of the estate that is requesting a certificate of compliance. I'm going to be promoting a Margaret Carr.
Okay, but can you explain why it's coming before us?
Yes, I will. Let me promote Ms. Carr first. And now I'm going to share my screen to remind you of the project. I downloaded this. One second, Mr. Chairman. I'm just gonna get this a little. Okay, so you all received Fallon staff report. Ms. Carr, just give me one moment. I'm gonna share my screen so the board can see the project. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yep. So there was an order of conditions issued in 2021 to reconfigure the driveway, add a cobble apron, install reinforced turf for additional parking, install a catch basin and leaching trench, reconfigure some of the mitigation, add additional 160 feet of mitigation, reconstruct the stone breakwater, remove and install the lawn, and replace the existing fence. One of the main reasons why staff cannot grant compliance and why Ms. Carr has requesting a hearing is that this drainage system was not installed. As well as, I believe there was a little stone stoop. Alyssa, is it on this side or the other side? I think it's on this side.
It's on that side, just a little north. It connects to the pathway through the dune.
Okay, yeah. Oh, right here, the little stone landing appeared, and I don't believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Carr, I don't believe they want to add any additional plants at this time. So with the addition of this and no additional mitigation, this will either have to be removed or mitigated for, or the board can decide that no mitigation is required. And then again, it was the non-installed drainage and leaching system that was originally proposed. Do you want me to keep this up while Ms. Carr addresses the board, Mr. Chairman, or would you like me to take it down?
No, that would be helpful. Thank you. Leave it up,
Okay,
please.
thank you.
Ms. Carr, you're up.
Hello, thank you for your time. So I understand that you all have seen the photos that I sent with an earlier email and have visited the property? Is that right? Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. So there were discrepancies, as she's mentioned, including that we had a sunfish and chairs. In the seagrass, we've removed those. There was a tree in the upper corner, where she's pointing, and that died naturally. We never have touched it, and it's in an area that nobody would go in anyway. So I'm hoping that is not going to be a further consideration. It must have come from a bird dropping, and there would be no way for us to maintain and guarantee the continuing life of a tree that we planted there. So to address that drainage feature, there really hasn't been a good explanation between Horiyuchi Solin, the landscape designer, and the Cape and Islands Engineering, but they do, as to why it wasn't then given to Marzilli, who was installing the actual landscape plan. But they, Cape and Islands Engineering agreed with Dan Solin that we should just go ahead and apply for the certificate of compliance, because the amount of water that could possibly be captured by that drain is so negligible that it just would not, the environmental benefit, if any, would not bear any resemblance to the cost of tearing up these two parking spaces. So I hope the photos that I sent would give you an idea of in a heavy rain, maybe you'd get a cup of water or something. I don't even know there, but we hope that you will agree that it's negligible, and that it did make sense to apply for the certificate of compliance, even though that hadn't been put in. And then as for the stones on the side, the large stone that is right at the tip of the boardwalk, the intersection of the boardwalk and our rear deck there, that was already there. And I think I sent in that email a picture of when we put in the landing. We had, as part of an earlier project that had nothing to do with this landscape project, which is what we were applying for the certificate of compliance for, we moved a door, so the landing moved from where it was. The previous landing stayed there, but we added another landing. That was done by Inman, which had done all the other the porch, the bluestone porch, and the stepping stones that were there as part of the earlier project, which we thought was all done. And so this was something that came up. It was a big surprise when it came up when the agent came to visit it. So we thought that whole earlier project was all done and in compliance. And so apparently when the predecessor to Cape and Islands Engineering, which was Holmes and McGrath, when they submitted the application for this landscape project, they didn't reflect those stepping stones. I don't know why they didn't have it in there, and I can only guess that it was during the pandemic and maybe they didn't actually come to the property, or I just don't know. But neither Holmes and McGrath nor Cape and Islands Engineering even brought up those stepping stones until it was brought to our attention by the agent that came to look at the property. So anyway, our hope is that you will vote to approve our certificate of compliance as it is, without requiring further action on our part. And if there's anything I can address beyond that, I would be happy to.
All right, thank you. Jen, you can stop sharing it for now, please. Thank you.
So to
right.
recap, Mr. Chairman, we're missing the tree from the dune, the landing and the walkway was enlarged, and the drainage wasn't installed, and that is why the staff could not issue the certificate of compliance. So as always, I would recommend that before issuing the certificate of compliance, you visit the site. And we can continue this for a week or two to give the board the opportunity to visit the site and view the site conditions yourself, especially at least the drainage part. We're going to probably be pretty adamant that either the enlargement of the walkway and stones be removed or mitigated for. I don't think the staff feels strongly either way on the installation of the drainage.
Okay. Alyssa.
That pretty much covers everything. What we can do is send you over the plan of reference, the plan submitted as the as-built for the certificate of compliance, if Fallon hasn't done so already, in addition to our staff report, and we'll kind of highlight those areas for you guys to look at.
And we did forward your email, Ms. Carr. So I did see Fallon forward that with your pictures to the board. So that has been done.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So basically, it sounds like the plan that was approved was not shared with the appropriate people. Is that too simple a statement?
I don't
Ms.
think anybody's
Carr was
quite
saying-
sure why the drainage wasn't installed. There hasn't really been a
On the approved plan, right?
correct.
You know, so Jen?
Ms. Carr, I have a question. Who did install that driveway? Was it Inman or was it Dan Celine's group or?
It said
who-
Mazzoli.
Oh, Mazzoli. Okay, sorry about that. And were they provided the plan?
Dan Soline said that the plan that he provided to Marzilli did not include that drainage thing that looks like a bar across the two parking spaces.
So that wasn't the approved plan.
There were two
need
plans.
to-
There was
we need to check
Holmes
that, right?
McGrath's plan and Dan's plan.
That's what happens when plans aren't consistent with one another.
Right, but it's supposed to be as simple as the plan that gets approved by conservation, right? I mean,
Well, they're both, it should be usually written into the order of conditions. If there are two plans, both plans are written into the order.
yeah,
So everything on both those plans, and if it's not consistent, they should go back to Jen to ask which one to follow.
That's why it's so important to have the landscape plan mirror the engineered plan. And just like tonight, we saw one. You know, the trees were on one plan, but they weren't on another plan, the landscape plan. And usually the landscape plan gets handed over to the landscape contractor, and they don't even look at the engineered plan. They just look at the landscape.
right.
So that's probably where that fell through the cracks.
Well, I'm gonna bring up Dan Celine's plan right now. Let's see.
Can we be given both of those plans if we're gonna go out and look, the old one and the new one?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, why don't we just
Continued.
move on and just plan to talk about this next week?
Okay.
Second,
Great.
Okay. Which property are you talking about?
Hold on.
69 Barneck.
Thank you. I don't even have that one.
It's okay, Kevin. We'll get it to you.
Thank you.
All right, Courtney, before your hand falls off.
Do we have aerials that show the existence of that walkway that's in question?
Yes.
So the walkway pre-existed the project?
Yes, it was reconstructed and enlarged.
Okay. And the second question I have is about the drainage.
So
Reason and stop me if I'm wrong, but the reason you put dry wells in is to prevent twofold. One is to prevent erosion. Second thing is to contain and run off onto the property. You didn't install this. In my mind, the only way I would be willing to approve as a commissioner the not installing those dry wells would be for you or your engineer definitively know that the roof runoff is not causing
I
erosion.
don't know about
Courtney,
anybody else, but I can't hear Courtney.
Yeah,
He's
well,
asking for a letter from the engineer stating for a
Quiet,
fact that this
Ben.
is negligible. And if it will, by not installing it, will it have an impact? He's looking for written documentation.
Well, they could offer that.
I think we have something in an email originally submitted during staff's review that did attempt to quantify the amount of water that would potentially leave the property. I don't have that up in front of me, but I'm happy to find it and send it along to you.
And Courtney, this isn't roof runoff or anything like this. This is just the area of the driveway between the road and the breakwater. So there wouldn't be dry wells. It was from the breakwater to the road. It was that small little area of driveway.
Surface runoff.
Yeah.
Correct.
it was a box drain.
It was that French drain, right?
Right, and it all sounds minimalist, but it was in the plan, it was offered, it was accepted. Here we are.
Clearly, there's a puddle out in front of it when it rains.
All right,
Yes, there is.
all right. Ms.
So
Carr,
Are we gonna continue this then? Have to go.
I'd like
Yeah.
to be able to address the question about the puddle. There's a depression in the road there, and so it's, if there's maybe a cup or maybe 2 cups full of water that goes into the depression, that's not all coming from the 2 parking spaces.
No, I
It's
can,
coming-
some of it's from the road.
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
stuff.
I understand that.
Okay. All right. Well, somebody had just mentioned that there was a puddle there, and so I'm trying to reinforce that it is negligible. The other thing I would like to mention is that I already paid over $2,300 for the engineering company to submit this application for certification of compliance. After it was declined, they sent me another bill for $800 just for talking about with me and Dan Soline about the findings. And so, considering that they have never talked to me about the discrepancy in these stepping stones by the new door, I'm really reluctant to rack up more bills by this engineering company, which is why I've come to speak to you as the property owner, rather than hiring them to come and do so. That I would, part of my objective is to control what are already quite high costs here. And we have made every effort to be in compliance from the very beginning. And we hired reputable people to do that. And so I hope that you will take that into consideration when you are thinking about what we must do to get across the finish line here. I would be happy to make an appointment with Jennifer Lincoln or other staff to go to the site and we can pry out those stones, not the one that was already there, because that was already for sure included in the in any calculations. But if we pry them out by hand, which we would have to do because there's utilities and a waste pipe in that area. So I would just I'd like to figure out what we can do to get across the finish line without doing a whole big additional costly engineering study and so.
Why don't you give us a chance to go out next week? And should we make a motion? Can I make a motion?
Yeah, please, we
Continue
beat this to death.
Make a motion to continue this hearing on 21 Davis Neck Road?
No, we're
No,
69
sorry.
Barnack.
69 Barnack Road until next week.
Third, second, and if I could make a comment.
What date do you have, John? Courtney, stop.
I personally, as a
Courtney,
contractor, somebody on this commission, I empathize with
Courtney, you
your.
haven't been called on.
What's that?
Jamie asked you to stop. He hadn't called on you.
I asked if I could make a comment.
But he didn't say yes.
All right.
You know what? Why don't you run the meeting? I'll just sit back and watch. This is getting old.
Yeah.
Betsy made a motion. Who seconded it?
I seconded it.
Then let's take the vote.
Jen, what's the date?
January 22nd.
Is that gonna be
1
enough
week.
time for you guys to give us the adequate material?
Yeah,
We will send it over to you tomorrow. Is that going to give the board enough time? Because if not, if the board does
Yes.
not feel that that's enough
It's
time.
fine.
the week is fine.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second
Go
to
look at
continue this until next week, the 22nd. we're not talking about it anymore. We're gonna go look at it and then we'll talk about it all you want. So we're voting on the continuance. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Heard
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Harlow Hawks Eye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
Pat and I,
It is unanimous. We've continued this until next week, so we have the opportunity to go to the site and take a look for ourselves. Thank you, Ms. Carr.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, Ms. Carr.
thank you, Ms. Carr.
Courtney, please just pay attention to what you see in front of you. You can ask to speak, but wait till you're acknowledged. Just makes it harder, please. Next up, continued hearing under an enforcement order. 21 Davis Neck Road has been previously continued. Next up is vote order conditions. Philip, I'm not sure I'm going to say this right. I apologize. Sconsas Revocable Trust of 2006, 4 Pocasset Street, Falmouth, Mass. And Alyssa, for the record, Betsy and I are not on the quorums for these. So Betsy, you can take off if you want.
I would
We'll
love
flip
to
it
take
through.
off. Lovely
Hi,
to see
Betsy.
everybody. Missed you last week.
See you later,
Good
Beth.
night.
That didn't sound very convincing. I don't think she missed any of us.
I did. It was true. I thought
Please don't
about
let her
you.
go on though.
All right. Jen,
So 4 Pocasset Street is adding a couple additions on. This was a very tricky one. Basically they're building an addition above an existing deck, which is 15 feet away from the edge of a very low profile bank with a salt marsh. Staff really is uncomfortable with allowing this to move forward just because, I mean, it is 15 feet from a very unstable shoreline, but it's over an existing deck. The structure's there. I do also have concerns that they can do this under the 50% assessed value of the structure. They are assuring us they can. They're adding 2 additions. The block foundation does not look great. It looks like there's rotting wood at the base of the house where the block foundation is. But at this point, I don't know what we could do. It is in a velocity zone. They will have to go to the building department with some, calculations. It's just tricky, and you'll hear me talking about and using this particular project as an example as we're looking at our regulations inland subject to coastal storm flowage, because I just truly, as I stated at the hearing, you may be able to do it under the regs, and technically under the regs, it's just not a smart thing to do. And they're cutting their salt marsh.
Courtney,
With the plan, I have a real concern about the double frost walls that they're proposing to support that addition that moves closer. And because both of those walls will be a solid wall against which wave action and so forth. And so I was gonna bring it up in the meeting, but I didn't get a chance to. I think that what they need to do is put a footing in or a ground beam at grade, a grade beam, and then support that structure on posts to allow for the free flow of water underneath there. So that's a change that I would insist on in the order conditions. That would be pending, of course, the approval of the building department, but I don't want to see a solid wall there. I think it's just gonna create a barrier that's gonna make the situation worse.
you good?
Yep.
Maury,
I've struggled with this one as well. It meets our regs, which makes it really difficult for denial. It's not smart probably for the applicant to move forward as far as our opinion. But I think probably the building department will have some feedback for them. And maybe they'll hear it twice and they might rethink this. But Jen, am I correct? It does meet our performance standards, our regulations, doesn't it?
I mean, Courtney brings up a good point, removing that wall closer.
That's
So
a
I think we
double
could
frost wall. Yeah.
yeah, 2 frost walls are moving closer. Right now, it's just on sonotubes, the deck. So they're taking a portion of the house, Jamie, and the deck, and they're making it all addition. So they have to support it with the 2 frost walls. This particular project, I mean, the house is there. It's pre-70. I mean, it's there, it's existing, it's been there forever, but it really should be going up on pilings. If they want to keep that structure in that location, the structure really should be going up on pilings. But I guess that is going to be without stronger regulations on our end, that is going to be up to the building department. But Courtney does bring up a good point about those 2 walls moving closer.
And does that fall under your purview?
It could fall under the board's purview. I mean, it's in your jurisdiction, so it falls under your purview.
Yeah, I just think we should condition it that it can't be solid walls there. They gotta be on a footing that's a grade and then a post.
Well, so if I can just say something as an advisory type role, because I'm not on this quorum, that, you know, the building department's gonna have some say in how that's constructed, as far as whether it's open piles or you know, a frost wall or whatever. I mean, I think from our purview, it's simply that, you know, it's a pre-existing piece that, no, Jen doesn't agree with me.
No, it's a pre-existing deck. There's no frost wall there now.
Right. But the fact that the deck's pre-existing gives them the right to add to it, and then structurally speaking, that, you know, the building department's gonna have some say, you know, how the architecturals are done. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not.
No, I know. I mean, I think it's worth a shot on our end. I mean, like I said, it's a pre-existing structure, but this really should be going up on pilings. I mean, it's right there in the V zone. The whole property's in the V zone. It's 15 feet away from the shoreline. I mean, it's close. It's real close. It's uncomfortably close for me, Mr. Chairman.
Courtney?
15 feet.
But
I think
I would say, I mean, we could try no solid walls.
Courtney?
I think you're right, the building department's gonna have the final say. I think if we put it in our conditions and get that to the building department, that's our recommendation. If the building department wants to overrule us, then, you know, prerogative.
They can't though.
Well, then
They
we
would
can
have
tell
to,
it
they
has
would
to be
have
on
to come
bylaw.
back to us. They would have to come back to us because we wouldn't sign off on the building permit.
Okay. Well, I mean, I would put it in our conditions and we'll hash it out with the building department. But I feel strongly that we should allow that water to move through there without any hindrance.
Maury?
If we make the condition and they appeal it, my question is to you, Jen. We really did not discuss what Courtney's talking about, putting beams in and pilings, and that I recall. We might have, but
No, we didn't.
we didn't. So we're kind of I don't know, it's, that just, I mean, that they will probably appeal if we say that, so. Because we did not discuss it.
Right.
Again, all we can hope is that they listen to us in the building department. I mean, I think the whole building should go up on pilings, but that's just my opinion.
Just go up.
Alyssa,
Nothing really to add other than perhaps verbalizing from the commission that the cutting should stop on the salt marsh. I'm not sure if you guys wanted to see any restoration.
somebody else raised their hand, so I don't have to call on Courtney again.
If they stop.
Courtney.
No, Maury raises a good point. We did, however, in fact, I brought it up. I asked specifically what the structure of that wall was, because I was concerned about it. Now, I didn't go to the point of saying it should be on pilings, but that's why we can still condition it. There's nothing to preclude that. In my opinion, anyway.
Then
Maury,
let's put it in there then, and if they appeal it, they appeal it. I mean, that's the next course of action for them. And as far as the salt marsh, Alyssa, is it to mitigate for the cutting of the salt marsh, or are we going to tell them to stop cutting the salt marsh?
At least to have them stop cutting.
Because what would we ask for them to mitigate? Just curious.
Well, there'd be no mitigation. I was thinking more restoration. That's all.
Restoration. Okay. Of the salt marsh. Yeah. If they stop cutting it, will it come back?
I don't see why not. You can just tell it's been the sumac kind of on the road side has been just cut over the years. I'm sure if they leave that alone, it'll rebound. The Baccharis cutting looks very new, but it wasn't all the way to the ground. It had a little bit of height. I'm sure it will bounce back. I'm not sure quite how that works in the winter, but
okay,
we could let it just grow back.
Right, because you did mention that. So if there was something we wanted to put in there, I would put it in. But if just letting it see if it'll regenerate, we'll see what happens.
and just to point out the obvious, this is a classic example of why we require architecturals typically. At least we have an idea what direction they're going in, you know.
We did get some architecturals, Mr. Chairman, we did get some architecturals that showed the interior because we wanted to see exactly what they were doing. Because all we had was this vague house renovation.
Right.
And I mean, the assessed value of the structure isn't that much. The current structure, I think, is assessed at 141. So they only have like $70,000 to play with. And to do all this work, I'd really like to see that FEMA worksheet when it goes to building.
Yeah. Okay. So just to be clear, you guys are gonna have a motion and a second, which would be a positive motion to issue an order of conditions. So
correct.
Agree an order of conditions should be issued. You're gonna vote for it, and if not, you don't. Just so we're clear.
With no solid walls, the addition is going to be on sonotubes and and to cease all cutting of the salt marsh and to allow the salt marsh, particularly the Baccharis, to grow back.
Exactly what Jen said. I will make a motion with those findings.
Second.
Third, second.
All right, you have a motion and a second on the table to issue an order of conditions. Last call, questions, comments, input. All right, you're voting to issue an order of conditions. Courtney?
Third, aye.
Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Fellow Hawks eye.
Ron?
Disco eye.
Steve?
Matt and I.
It is unanimous with this quorum. You have issued an order of conditions. And a well thought out one, I might add. All right, next. Sarah Reber, Denkla Reber Family Trust, 13 Cricket Lane, Falmouth, Mass.
So this is,
Nope, you're up, Jen.
okay,
Sorry.
this is a raise and rebuild with a extensive invasive species removal and restoration project. The site is covered in that skinny little bamboo. We went back and forth with Teresa and Tim from Merrill Engineering, Teresa from Blue Flag. Her group will be doing the invasive species work. They had originally a patio. The patio was moving closer. Now they're just going to rehab the existing garage, build the house, do the invasive species work. The problem is they are moving closer into the zone A of the wetland by 10 square feet. It's a good project. I don't want to see us deny the project over that encroachment of 10 square feet. So I would recommend we request a revised plan. Ask for a revised plan, removing that 10 square foot portion of the house from moving closer to the zone A. Overall, it's a great project. It's just, it's tripping against that one reg, and that's an easy fix for them.
Sounds reasonable. Courtney?
There was a whole discussion about the bamboo and that there was also bamboo on the neighbor's property. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yes.
So, if the neighbor isn't gonna collaborate with them, I'd like to see as condition that they put a root barrier down.
Okay.
It's
And
already
make sure it's
proposed.
at least 4 feet down. And that
In the plan.
It's
yeah. And that they clean the soil well, so there aren't any fragments of bamboo root.
So I make a motion to accept our order as discussed.
Bird second.
All right, you have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions as discussed. And that's removing the 10 square feet.
With a revised.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, revised plan, removing the 10 square feet. Courtney, a root barrier is already on the plan, so that is already there.
Okay. And it goes down 4?
Yep, we'll make sure of that.
Yeah.
All right. Any other input? All right, you're voting to issue an order of conditions. Courtney?
Bird eye.
Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawks eye.
Ron?
Driscoll, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous with this quorum. You have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Dana Roden, Quistit Harbor House Land Trust, 71 Quistit Harbor Road, Falmouth, Mass. Jen?
Yes, this is just the reconstruction of the existing dock down there. Really pretty straightforward. I recommend approval.
Move to accept the order of conditions as discussed.
Driscoll, second.
All right, short and sweet. I like it. Any input? All right, you're voting to issue an order of conditions. Courtney?
Bird eye.
Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Maury?
Carlo Hawks eye.
Ron?
Driscoll, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous with this quorum. You have issued an order of conditions. Next up, Margaret Strakosh, trustee, Strakosh Family, 2014 Irrevocable Trust, 158 Westwood Road, Falmouth, Mass.
Raise and
Jen?
rebuild, installation of an infinity pool. They're reconstructing the seawall. Took the regrading off the plan. They're saving the cedars. They're adding cedars. Bracken basically addressed all of the staff's concerns in our staff report. The only thing I would say is they're doing the house before the wall. They're gonna have to stink that machine. I think it's on the left side of the house. They're going on the left side of the house, and we're gonna need a pre-construction before that wall is redone, and they are not to remove any vegetation until they are going to be doing the wall.
Okay. Any other input? All right,
Make the motion to accept the order as discussed.
Bird
Carlo Hawk.
second. Bird second.
all right. You have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Last call, any input? All right, you're voting to issue an order of conditions. Courtney,
Bird eye.
Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Maury,
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Ron,
Driscoll, aye.
Steve.
And I,
It is unanimous. You have issued an order of conditions. Last motion, who wants it?
Motion
Move
to
to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Driscoll.
All right, we have multiple motions, multiple seconds to adjourn.
Bird eye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Carlo Hawk's eye.
Driscoll, aye.
and I.
it is unanimous. We have adjourned. Thank you, everyone.